So I think since we're going to start our presentation, okay? Okay. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning,
Waalaikumsalam.
everyone. My name is Ahmad Lucky Ismaya. I'm from Group 7. We are going to present our presentation about fronting and inversion, dislocation, and clefting. Um, my team consists of me, Ahmad Lucky Ismaya, Afifan Shahida, Asaburias, and Chami Song. However, um, Rias was missing the whole process, so he was stated as not more than expected. It's unfortunate, but yeah. Okay, for the first part will be explained by Afifa Nurul Shahida. Afifa, if you may, thank you.
Yes, Iki, thank you. Okay. So the first material is about fronting. First, we're going to talk about the definition. In English grammar, fronting refers to any construction in which a word group that customarily follows the verb is placed at the beginning of the sentence. It also called front focus or preposing. Next slide, Iki.
Do you have any problem with your connection? The slide is already.
Oh, okay.
Belum, Ki. Di saya masih yang definitions fronting, Ki.
Oh, ini ada dua mem.
Yeah,
Kayak
yeah,
gitu.
ada
Oh, oke. Siap, siap, siap. Baik, baik, baik.
baru. So fronting is a type of focus strategy often used to enhance cohesion and provide emphasis. When used in conversation, fronting allows the speaker to place attention at the beginning of a sentence to make a story more compelling. So next, where can we use a fronting? So first is to link a sentence more closely to the preceding sentence. For example, it started to snow all of a sudden, and it becomes all of a sudden it started to snow. Second is to highlight a contrast. For example, they liked their coffee, but they didn't really enjoy their cakes. Become their coffee they liked, but their cakes they didn't really enjoy. And last is to emphasize and focus. For example, the wine was even better than the food. Become the food was excellent, but even better than that was the wine. Next material will be explained by my friends.
Okay, thank you. Next, I will be talking about the inversion. If syntax is the normal word order for sentence, inversion or anastrophe is the opposite of syntax. The purpose of inversion is to draw readers' attention by giving the emphasis on a particular word, and it is widely used in literary works as a literary device as well as in typically exclamatory sentences. For example, if normal syntax goes like this, she is a beautiful lady. On the ship, he saw an island. The inverted syntax goes like, what a beautiful lady she is. On the ship, saw he an island. There are three techniques in inversion. The first one is placing an adjective after the noun. For example, the girl beautiful instead of the beautiful girl. Secondly, placing a verb before its subject. For example, said the boy instead of the boy said. Finally, there is placing a noun before its preposition. For example, people between instead of between the people. The effects of inversion gives many effects. The inversion gives many effects. Firstly, it gives emphasis to a particular part of the sentence. Secondly, it gives a dramatic effect while reading, and the reader can visualize the situation better. Thirdly, in poetry, it helps in creating a rhyme pattern. Finally, it amuses the reader. So the following table shows the different version of the poetry called the golden cage. The left column, which is the normal syntax, the left column is the normal syntax, and the right column shows the inverted syntax. We can clearly notice that the right column, inverted syntax, has more literal effects than the normal syntax, such as wept the bird, asked the queen, said the boat, to have what pain, tears I see when gaze you. Next slide, please. So that I have talked about inversion, I will now talk about the dislocation. In syntax, dislocation is a sentence structure where an external noun phrase is added at the left or right end of the clause in order to clarify, emphasize, or define the topic. For example, if the normal syntax goes, roses are beautiful, the dislocated syntax goes like this, roses, they are beautiful roses. There are two types of dislocation. The first one is left dislocation, and the second one is the right dislocation. So the left dislocation is the movement of a word, phrase, or clause to the beginning or the left hand of the sentence, leaving a pronominal copy of the fronted element in its original place. For example, John, he's a brother of mine. Left dislocation serves to reintroduce given information that has not been talked about for a while, which eventually becomes a topic. It is frequently contrastive and usually definite. Left dislocation is typically used when going through a list. For example, I have many friends in my neighborhood: Tom, John, and James. Tom, I met him on the first day we moved. Noun phrase can be left dislocated from any position in the sentence. It may even be dislocated from an embedded sentence. For example, that party, Alison said that Susie had organized it for Dan. And the right dislocation. Right dislocation is the movement of a word, phrase, or clause to the end or the right hand of the sentence. Right dislocation is the reverse of left dislocation. However, right dislocation differs from left dislocation in that both a noun phrase and an auxiliary can right dislocate. For example, he's amazing, that man is, or she has scolded her son, Mary has. So that's all for the dislocation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Song. So this is clefting is my part of presentation. So what is clefting? So a cleft is a construction in which some element in a sentence is moved from its normal position into a separate clause to give it greater emphasis. It has two usages: to emphasize and to check the constituency of the elements in the sentence. So in simpler terms, that clefting is to make a normal sentence into a sentence that can emphasize an element of the sentence. For example, let me give you two examples. It's quite simple actually. So, for example, Ma'am Ati loves us, but we don't know what do we want to emphasize in the sentence. If we want to emphasize Ma'am Ati, we can say it is Ma'am Ati who loves us, or it is us who Ma'am Ati loves. If we want to emphasize us, another form is like the one who Ma'am Ati loves is us, and we are the one who Ma'am Ati loves. Another example is Aisha wore a gown in the kitchen last night. If we want to emphasize Aisha, we can say it was Aisha who wore a gown in the kitchen last night. If we want to emphasize the gown, then we can say it was a gown that Aisha wore in the kitchen last night. But if we want to emphasize the time, it was last night that Aisha wore a gown in the kitchen. And if we want to emphasize the preposition, it was in the kitchen that Aisha wore a gown last night. Well, we can also see like some examples like it is loving us that Temati does, and it was wearing a gown that Aisha had it in the kitchen last night. But depending on the English dialect, these two can be correct and incorrect grammatically, so it's not really recommended to chang the verbal phrase. And so in terms of constituency test, we can see that some of the elements is actually not a constituent. It was in the that Aisyah would go in the kitchen. It is Memati love that is done to us. What I got in the kitchen last night was the Aisyah wore. We can see that the underlined words are not constituent and these sentences are grammatically incorrect. But what is exactly a constituent? Well, we're going to have like a side theory about constituent. So constituent is the linguistic part of a larger sentence, phrase, or clause. Um, it can be a morpheme, word, phrase, or clause. So what does that mean? So in simple terms, that it is actually a construction of the sentence that is can be constructed or can be this yang bisa termasuk dalam word, phrase, or clause. For example, this is like a picture that can illustrate the definition. So sentence consists of constituent which is consisted of words. For example, Aisyah is cooking a sirloin steak in the kitchen. So Aisyah and is cooking a sirloin steak in the kitchen is the noun and the verb phrase. But we can see that these are constituents. And is cooking a sirloin steak is the constituent as a verbal phrase, and in the kitchen is a constituent in the phrasal. So I'm sorry, in the prepositional phrase. But if we say that a sirloin steak in, it's not constituent karena in Indonesian, I'm going to explain it in Indonesian. I'm sorry. Jadi tidak nyambung gitu loh, tidak satu kesatuan gitu loh. Dan satu kesatuan ini yang merupakan konstituen. Jadi bisa ngecek mana yang konstituen, mana yang enggak dengan cara clefting ini. Selain dengan ya cara lain. Okay, back to the clefting again. There are two types of clefting. It's cleft and with cleft or WH cleft. The formula is an it clef consists of a dummy it subject, a form of be, an item in clef position, and a relative or adjective clause. We can see that the formula is it plus be plus item or constituent plus relative or adjective clause. And the item here is the focus that we want to emphasize. And this can be concluded as the given information or information which is assumed to be agreed. For example, Alvin loves me. So it's the normal form. So when we want to turn this into a cleft sentence to emphasize one of the elements, we can see that it is Alvin that loves me, or it is me that Alvin loves. So there's difference. When we want to focus on Alvin, we use the we use the Alvin loves that loves me, and if we want to emphasize the as the me, it is me that Alvin loves. So another type is the WH class. So the WH class sentence consists of a headless relative clause, a form of be, and either a noun phrase or a verbal phrase. So a relative clause. So the formula is relative clause plus be plus item or constituent. And there is also a reverse form for the formula, which is item or constituent plus be plus relative clause. However, there is a difference between the two. So in normal, the item is the focus or new information of the sentence, while the relative clause is the given information which is assumed to be agreed. But if we reverse the formula, then the item is the focus and the given information, and the relative clause is the new information. So there's difference there. For example, Alvin loves chocolate milk. So we can turn the form into the WH class form with the help of the formula. It will become, if we want to emphasize the chocolate milk, then what Alvin loves is chocolate milk, is the chocolate milk. And in the reverse form, it says like the chocolate milk is what Alvin loves. But there's a difference between the two based from the formula above, that this the chocolate milk in the in the sentence above is actually the new information. But if we if but in the bottom sentence, we can see that what Alvin loves is actually the new information. See? But the focus is different. So the chocolate milk is the focus and the new, and the chocolate milk is the focus and is the given information. So the information that we have known. And however, the WH clef cannot be used to for animate objects. However, there is one type of clef which is called one clef, which is a friend of WH clef for animate object. The structure is similar to WH clef with the addition of the one. So if the normal WH clef is relative clause plus be plus item or constituent, then the one clef is to add the one in to add the one in the front or in the middle in the reverse form. So the reverse form is item plus constituent plus be plus the one plus relative clause. We can also see that the item is the new information like the WH class because it's similar, right? And the relative clause is like the assumed to be agreed, and if the reverse, like the item is the new and is the is the given and focus, while the relative clause is the new information. For example, Alvin loves her. So we can turn the form above to the one clef form with the help of the formula. It will become the one who Alvin loves is her, and she is the one who Alvin loves. So there's different in WH clef and the what was it again? The it clef when we want to um, when we want to like describe like an animate object or an inanimate object. So It clef are kind of flexible, so we can see that from this um I'm sorry, wait, from this that Alvin loves me. If it's Alvin that loves me, it doesn't require the addition of the one. But if we want to describe an animate object in the WH clef, we have to put the one either in the front or in the middle of the sentence. And that's from us group 7. After this, we are going to have a video session. Wait a minute, please. The first video will be about, what was it again? Oh, yeah. Fronting and inversion. Please wait a minute. There's going to be one, two. There's going to be a 4 videos. Okay, can you guys see the screen? Is my voice hearable? Can you see the screen? Okay, thank you, Lavita.
Hi, I am Aisha Hardan, a student at the Department of English Language and Literature at the University of Bahrain. Welcome to our Advanced Grammar series. Today, I will be talking to you about fronting and inversion. So first, what is fronting? It's when we focus our attention or emphasize one part of a sentence, such as the object, by moving it to front position. Where can we use fronting? Fronting can be used to link a sentence more closely to the preceding sentence. For example, we were staring outside the window. It started to snow all of a sudden. We move all of a sudden to the front, so it goes like all of a sudden it started to snow. In the second example, we have she was coughing, sneezing, and shivering. He recognized these sentences immediately. When we move this sentence to the front, this sentence he recognized immediately. We can also use fronting to highlight a contrast. For example, they went to the coffee shop near them. They liked the coffee, but they didn't really enjoy their cakes. So their cakes is the contrast. When we use fronting with this sentence, it goes like their coffee they liked, but their cakes they didn't really enjoy. And the second sentence we have, we met the Greens. We liked Mrs. Green, but we really didn't care for her husband. Her husband is the contrast. So Mrs. Green we liked, but her husband we really didn't care for. Then we have inversion. What is inversion? It's when we put the verb or auxiliary verb before the subject. Where do we use inversion? Inversion can be used with verbs describing places or movements after prepositional phrases. For example, in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. An old woman stood behind the chair. Behind the chair stood an old woman. Inversion can also be used after adverbs such as here and there. For example, here comes the bus, or there goes my bus. It can also be used after the negative words, neither, nor, and so on. For example, I don't like it, neither do my parents, nor does anyone else have asked. Never have I encountered such rudeness. It can also be used in phrases beginning with not, such as, not until later did we notice the broken glass, that a sound could be heard in the church. We can also use inversion in front of positions. For example, scarcely had he sat down when the phone rang. It can also be used after only with prepositional phrases or time expressions in front positions. For example, I've looked for it in other places. Only in Italy can you find this special kind of ice cream. Or, only after the test will we know if it worked. Only then we can decide what to do next. Also, inversion can be used after participles move to front positions, usually in narratives. For example, the bedroom was empty, lying on the bed was parcel, attached to it was a small note. I hope this was useful. Thank you for your attention.
wait.
Kebawa iklannya.
Wait. The second video is about dislocation. Please wait a minute. Okay, share this app instead. Okay.
And so look at these sentences. So my kids, they will have their chance. My son, I think he leaves around noon. Okay, let's do the second one first. My son, I think he leaves around noon. What's the canonical version of that? I think my son leaves around noon. Do you see something extra in the non-canonical version? Is it just the fact that my son got taken out and preposed? My son, I think, leaves around noon. No, there's something extra there that he wasn't in the canonical version. How about the first one? My kids will have their chance. My kids, they will have their chance. There's an extra word there. So this can't be preposing. This can't be preposing. In preposing, nothing gets added. What this is dislocation. The canonical version, so my kids will have their chance. Left dislocation, you take out something and you put it to the beginning, right? Left is a term that's biased towards writing systems like that of English, where you start from, where you go from left to right. It's not really fair to other languages, but that's kind of another issue for another day. The point here is that you take something out, you put it to the beginning of a sentence, but crucially, you stick something else in its place. And almost always it's a noun phrase that you take out and it's a pronoun that you stick in. That may be actually always. I'm not sure if it's always, almost always, or always, always. So the other one, my son, I think he leaves around noon. That's left dislocation. If you just said my son, I think, leaves around noon, that would be canonical. And what's going on here? Can you figure this one out? He never was a great listener is fine, right? And there's something stuck on the end. He's paranoid is fine, but there's something stuck on the end. And those things should really be the subject of the sentence, right? My father never was a great listener, canonical. My boss is paranoid, canonical. But those things got moved, and they got replaced by a pronoun.
It's all right.
And the only difference between these and left dislocation is what? It's just that they got moved to the other side. They got moved to the end instead of the beginning. So what is this? It's just right dislocation. Same thing. You can do it either way. Just remember, in both cases with dislocation, the thing that gets taken out gets replaced in its original place by a pronoun. So you have preposing and postposing in both directions of dislocation. Now here's another phenomenon. What do you see happening here? Focus on the subject of this sentence and think about it, right? It's still true.
Okay, that's the third video and the second video. So the next video is about it's reliable information because it's from the University of Edinburgh. Please wait a minute. Okay, can you guys see the YouTube video? Okay, thank you. Cool.
We already saw that English, like many other languages, has ways to indicate particular information structure within a sentence. We use that fronting operation, particularly in order to indicate contrast with something that's been said before. But there are other instructions that can be used to gain particular effects. And one that's used is the it cleft, which is particularly used to convey focus. That is, it's used to convey that a particular constituent conveys new information while another part of the sentence is old information, information that's presupposed, which is assumed to be agreed. An example of an it cleft would be something like, it was my dog that ate the homework, where it's agreed that something ate the homework, and the new information I'm giving you is that it was my dog. The information structure of these is a very interesting topic in itself, but for us, the crucial point here is that that part that's in focus has to be a constituent. So we can use this then as a diagnostic for constituency. In order to do that in practice, you have to think of a kind of recipe for clefts. So one way of thinking about the recipe is you start from a sentence. So let's take the sentence, my sister loves ripe Italian tomatoes. And we want to know whether ripe Italian tomatoes is a constituent or not. The way we'd construct a cleft with that as the focus is first we'd move it to the beginning of the sentence. So if the sentence was, my sister loves ripe Italian tomatoes, we'd move ripe Italian tomatoes and we get ripe Italian tomatoes, my sister loves. Then we have to separate that part that we've moved from the remnant of the sentence that it's moved from. We separate it either with that or with a relative pronoun, who or which, depending on what's appropriate. So then you'll wind up with ripe Italian tomatoes, that my sister loves. And then the other part of the cleft is the it and the form of the verb be. So when you preface those to what we've just done, you'll wind up with it is ripe Italian tomatoes that my sister loves. That's a perfectly grammatical sentence. So it's evidence that ripe Italian tomatoes is a constituent in the original sentence, where the original sentence, you remember, was my sister loves ripe Italian tomatoes. So it's quite a long process, but the reason it's important to think of that whole recipe is that the same sequence of words can appear as a constituent in one context, but may not be a constituent in another context. So when you're testing a sequence of words in a sentence, you need to test it relative to that sentence. So that's why in this case, we start from the sentence. The question was, in the sentence, my sister loves ripe Italian tomatoes. Is ripe Italian tomatoes a constituent? And so we construct the cleft based on that sentence. And that's crucial for using it as a diagnostic for constituency. We can use clefts to diagnose constituency not only of noun phrases, but also prepositional phrases. So for example, if we took the sentence, my sister found some loose change behind the sofa cushions. And I want to know, is behind the sofa cushions a constituent? The way I could test it for that sentence would be to construct the cleft. It was behind the sofa cushions that my sister found some loose change. So that's a grammatical sentence, and that tells us that in the original sentence, my sister found some loose change behind the sofa cushions. Behind the sofa cushions is a constituent. In fact, it's a PP. There are other constituents in that sentence. There are other clefts that you could make. So you could say, it was my sister who found some loose change behind the sofa cushions. Or it was some loose change that my sister found behind the sofa cushions. So each of those different clefts pulls out a different constituent from the original sentence. So now we have quite a lot of information about the constituency of that original sentence. However, there are some limitations to this as a diagnostic constituency. In particular, depending on the dialect of English that you speak, it may be limited as to whether you can focus adjective phrases or verb phrases in this construction. So many dialects of English don't allow you to focus either of those types of constituent. So my sister is very tall. It's very tall that my sister is. For some speakers of English, that's grammatical. For many, it's ungrammatical. So depending on the dialect, this constituency test is not available for adjective phrases, and the same applies for verb phrases. That doesn't actually mean that in those dialects, those sequences, so adjective phrases, don't exist, that those aren't constituents. It's the fact that it cleft are limited in what kinds of constituents can be focused.
Okay, that's the third video, and the final video will be about the WH cleft.
Today's test is pseudocleft. I covered cleft. This is a subcategory of clefting, which is called pseudocleft. What is a pseudocleft? If we have the simple sentence, the cat chased the mouse, the point is which words go together as a constituent? The cat or chased the, or is it cat chased the, or the mouse? These are different words that you could take and say, okay, the two words, the cat, do they really go together intimately as a constituent? Or the words chase the? I think we have the hunch that chase the is not a constituent, but then how do you go about systematically explaining this? There is a way to do that. There are tests you run. Those are called constituency tests that will help you determine if two or more words are a constituent in a sentence. So I'm going to run this particular test, which is called pseudoclefts, also known as WH clefts. For example, the sentence is the cat chased the mouse. Then you want to see chase the. So chased is a verb. Probably you want to use what. You can say what the cat did was chase the. It doesn't make sense, right? So this doesn't make sense. Therefore, the chase the is not a constituent. What about the cat? What chased the mouse was the cat. So here, the cat is a constituent because the sentence that we make by using a pseudocleft or WH cleft is grammatical, is grammatically acceptable. But the first sentence, which is what the cat did was chase the, is not grammatically acceptable. So basically the formula is what X did, B could be was or is. What X did was Y. Now I want to ask you, can you run the test for those and tell me cat chased the? Is that a constituent? So first of all, if you say cat chased the here, you will be left only with two words, the and mouse. Your X and Y would be the and mouse. So it would be what the did was cat chased the mouse. For example, I can give you another sentence like he caught the butterfly. Then if I ask you whether the butterfly is a constituent, you can create the sentence, what he caught was the butterfly. So what he caught here, he caught the butterfly. Why does this work? Because even if you draw the tree diagram for this, he caught the butterflies. The butterflies, do you see it has a node NP? The fact that the butterfly is actually a constituent is also reflected in the tree as a node. Whatever is a node is a constituent. But of course, you don't have the tree. When we're doing constituency tests, we're not talking about trees. But the point is, if you draw the tree and then you also conduct the constituency test, you will see that they match each other. They don't go against each other. So I'm going to do more sentences here now. Sally bought a teapot. You want to know if a teapot is a constituent. You replace it with a WH word. It would be Sally bought what, and then you front it. What Sally bought was a teapot. You add that part. If here the sentence was in present, Sally buys a teapot, then the test would be what Sally buys is a teapot. You see, the tense would match. The cat drank the milk. Now, can you run the test for the milk? Is the sentence grammatical? It is. Therefore, the milk is a constituent. Yay! The kid played in the park. The question is, The words in the park together, are they a constituent? So where the kid played was in the park. Is it grammatical? Yes. Therefore, the word string in the park is a constituent. So what is the WH word for an animate subject? The WH word would be who, or the one who. For example, if I have the sentence, the cat drank the milk. So we had the WH word for the milk, because it's inanimate, was what? But for the cat, you can say the one who drank the milk was the cat. So here, the cat is a constituent. What if I ask you, drank the milk, is it a constituent or not? How do you put it to test, considering that it's a verb, it's not an object or an animate subject? For the verb, you can use what do, in the sense that do is conjugated. So you can say, what the cat did was drink the milk. This one is a constituent, and this stands for that. So again, the sentence is grammatical, therefore it is a constituent. Let's look at their formula and see if it works. What X did was Y. You see, it works.
Okay, that's all the video. Next session we will have a quiz session. So okay, please wait a minute. I'm going to